From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. I am Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, joined by Tom Campbell, our Chief Creative Officer.
Hello, everyone.
And James St. James, literary sensation and host, of course, of Night Fever, our exciting podcast.
Very exciting. Season 5 coming soon.
Exactly. Perfectly said, but not as entertaining as this show. And we're going to start straight in and count down at number 10. Tom.
Number 10.
I think the show on everyone's lips this week is The White Lotus Season 3. We're only one episode in. I want to complain and say not much happened. And yet, in retrospect, there was so much hype that was laid, if you will. Am I using that expression wrong? I think maybe I am. This friend of mine, Drew, was living in Palm Springs when I was down there in January. And I called him today just to say hi. And he said, "Scratch my arm." And I said, like Parker Posey and White Lotus, he goes, "Yes." And it cemented our relationship forever. I mean,
I'll tell you that everywhere I've gone for the past 3 days, first thing everyone says is White Lotus. I go to the office, every floor, second, third floor, fourth floor, it's just White Lotus conversations. I go to the store, people want to talk about White Lotus. I'm walking down the street, people stop me and say White Lotus. It's bonkers how much people are into this show.
I watched it alone, so I had to go onto forums, vulture forums and things to feel full afterwards. And some people, and I disagree, some people were criticizing Parker Posey's Southern accent.
Can I just say this about that?
Yes.
You will not get me to say a bad word about Parker Posey.
And I will not go there either. I'm here to defend her because first, and I love, they were defending her in the comments too, saying, well, because she's playing a mother in deep denial about everything, who is high on pills the whole time. So
I know women that talk like that. So it's not.
I was just going to say, we have a millennial producer who has a bit of an accent himself. So I don't know where people were getting off saying that it was. And
it's that lockjaw, but it's the Southern version.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a sister in North Carolina, and they do talk like that. They're those Republicans.
And I just love that when she first meets them, when they're first being kind of brought into their suite, and the wellness person is trying to take away their phone. They're like, "We're not those kind of people. No, get away. And then it's like, well, I'm going to come back tomorrow and give you guys a little test so I can, program your wellness. Or she's like, "Oh, I don't like tests. Is it going to be hard?" Every little subtle remark of hers stands out to me, and she keeps falling asleep. And then she goes, "Oh, good news. I got a little energy burst." She goes, "Don't worry, I took a lorazepam." And then the scratch thing, she falls asleep at dinner. She drugs out at dinner, and her only thing is like to her daughter, "Please scratch my arm. Oh, that feels so good." And the way she talks to the husband in bed and just like aggrandizes him and says, "I'm so lucky to be in love with you. Everybody says so. You're a great man." So that just feels like a relationship that, because, we know now the first few minutes, there's going to be a murder. We sort of witness a murder. We see a body. We can't even freeze frame it. You can't figure out who it is. And so everyone is suspect. Do we want to jump into Patrick Schwarzenegger?
What does
go, baby, because that is some bonkers banana crackers. Nuts.
I've never seen him act before. He's kind of pretty good.
He's very good. He was on the Boys spinoff about he was one of the college superheroes, and he was spectacular in that. He was very good.
And he got the best looks from his mother and father combined. And there's a very uncomfortable part of this, but I love, he's so cocky.
The bro, he's just a bro, isn't he?
Bro, like an aggressive, toxic bro. And my favorite scene was when he goes to the pool to swim, and he comes out, and they have kind of the camera has him half submerged and half out, and he's kind of like a crocodile looking for meat. You know, he's scanning the pool for the hottest girls. Which I got to tell you, maybe I'm more Patrick Schwarzenegger than I want to be, but don't we all kind of suss things up as men? Like you're like, like without even knowing, you're like.
Well, I'm looking at the boys grabbing their craws. I'll tell you that when he gets out and he's playing with his little wiener, yeah.
Right. And
well, not little, because we saw it later, and it was a big old dong.
Did we see it?
Yeah, we saw
James,
it.
you're hallucinating.
No. You guys go on. It's there. Blake,
I
back
definitely saw Dong.
Yes,
I love this. We're talking about White Lotus, and we just arrived at Dong. We're just
but it was very big. It was he bends over in the bathroom, and it's just this giant beanstalk.
They're very into like penis from behind on the show. Or
no, it's not behind. You see his butt, and then he turns around, and you get total dong. I don't know what you guys were watching. You weren't watching White Lotus.
I must have been screening it. I don't know what
the rest of the world screamed and leapt towards their TV screen.
And what do we think about the incest theme?
Right, and that's the thing, that now he sleeps naked. Like, this is my only criticism, and I have no criticisms because Mike White has given us 2 incredible seasons of White Lotus, and I surrender to his storytelling until further notice. But the younger brother, someone said online that he goes to Duke, and Duke's I don't know if it's true or not, their mascot's the devil, and so he's the devil, and that the sister is the angel, and that the younger brother's soul is for the taking. Like he'll waver between the two.
Well, there's that great moment on the ferry where you see the 3 of them.
They do the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Yes.
One's wearing sunglasses, see no evil. One's wearing headphones, hear no evil, and one's drinking something, so it's speak no evil.
Yeah.
So they're sleeping side by side. We find out that Patrick Schwarzenegger is naked, which guys don't sleep naked next to each other. And he starts to reveal these kind of homoerotic, weird tensions with his younger brother. I'm just saying Patrick Schwarzenegger's is like 22 or 23 in this thing, his character. So why is the brother is he just getting signals that his brother is creepy?
Are they half brothers or something? Like, I got the impression that there was a bigger age gap or something, and that this older brother wasn't around that much or something. It just seemed weird.
Hopefully we find out that they're all step siblings or something like that, and it makes it a little less creepy. He talks about his sister in very weird terms about how she's broken down and she's this and that, and she is she isn't open to new idea or something. And then he's very upset when the sister doesn't go with him and she goes off to the monastery, and the brother chooses to go with the sister, and he doesn't like that at all. He's very weird about all
good
that.
And evil. That's trust in good and evil. People are criticizing, like, do we need a gay character that has incestuous thoughts?
But here's the thing. Let me just say this about that. It's a fictional show. Nobody is actually committing incest. It's just 2 hot guys that are going to kiss and bone each other. So whatever. It's no skin off it's no, like, my moral, high ground is not that, we can't have fictional incest. Go ahead, do it. It's interesting. I like to see it.
Your moral high ground has always been something of a swamp, I would say.
Now.
Said with love. I mean, I tell you what, White Lotus is streaming on Max, but let's go on to number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9 is White Lotus Part 2, because Tom covered a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about, in which, no, I'm not going to say anything bad about Parker Posey. And 2, I'm there for the brotherly love. Going back to Parker Posey, every heroin addict I have ever known, every opiate addict I have ever known does that. Scratch my arm. Michael Alig used to do that every time you'd see him. He'd be like, scratch my arm. That's just something that is an opiate addict. They need to get that little scratchy scratch there. So I have a feeling we're going to get a lot more about Parker Posey and her addiction in there. I do want to say that her husband, I don't know if you remember, he was Draco Malfoy's father in Harry Potter movies. He had the white blonde hair of Draco Malfoy, and he was very hot. And he's a very hot guy. He's a really hot actor. His accent, he's got an Australian accent. It slips every once in a while. He goes from Southern to Australian.
He looks good in a golf polo, I have to say.
Yeah. He's a hot guy. I think the toothy girl is going to die. I got sad vibes from her that she was not long for this world. It's not. I don't know if it's Walter Goggins who's going to do it, or the bald guy from seasons 1 and 2, or the model. There was something very sus about that conversation that the model and her were having at dinner. Remember,
she's luring her into some kind of three-way.
There's something a little strange. I think Toothy Girl is dead. 2 theories that I heard about who the shooter is. Number 1, Carrie Coons. We saw her have that mini breakdown as she walked in her room, chugged the wine, and started sobbing because those 3 girls, those passive-aggressive friends, hate each other. They all despise each other. So there's going to be some big explosion with that. The other theory that I heard was that the monkeys get the guns and go bananas and
That's what I think. It's going to be a monkey attack, and so it's going to have a layer on a layer when it's finally.
Because it's one of the other things I wanted to talk about really quickly was the change of the theme song, which just broke my heart because I love that theme song so much. But this season, it's a new theme song, and it doesn't quite hit the same. But it does have that same thing where it's the art, the pictures, and they get progressively creepier and creepier. And you see the monkeys climbing up, and then you see the monkeys covered in blood, and they're grabbing at people and all that stuff. And someone's head is severed. So I mean, I love that opening. I do love the openings. I'm not as wild about the song anyway.
Truth be told, I watched the opening once and skipped by it every other time. Go ahead.
Well, some people have said, it's not the same without Jennifer Coolidge, for example. So there is a sort of, but then at the same time, there's a familiarity. There's certain tropes, I guess, that we've come to.
And we do have the black girl from season 1 who is so sweet and so wonderful. And please wrap her in bubble wrap and don't let anything happen to her. And her hot son, she has that very hot son in the beginning.
I'm excited by this cast. I think Jennifer Coolidge, I love her. I want to see her in everything, but it's good to keep moving forward. The last thing I'll say about this is my favorite new expression, LBH.
What's that?
Losers back home. That's what the model says. She goes, I'm with the bald guy, and there's just a sea of bald guys.
It looks like this show, doesn't it?
The bald guy in the orange shirt. Oh, him. It's like, you know what they call them? LBHs, losers back home. I just thought that was brutal, and I enjoyed it. So again, not a ton of plot, but interesting. There's also the subplot of the two co-workers who speak Thai, which I think is going to be interesting.
You know who she is.
She's from Blackpink, right?
Yes, she is. Lisa from Blackpink.
Yes. Who has
and you have the wellness matriarch. Something's going on there. Oh my God.
She's a cracker. Nutty butter cracker, isn't she? Wow. She's a wild one.
All right. Well, that's White Lotus streaming on Max. I mean, I kind of almost tempted to continue talking about it at number 8.
Number 8.
But unless I really don't have anything more to usefully add to that. So I want to wind the clock back a bit and talk about something I never watched when it came out. But thanks to Elliot, my 10-year-old, he has become Squid Game obsessed. But because my kid is finally into it, I felt as a parent I should sit with him and watch it in case it was all wildly unsuitable, which I expected it would be. And actually, not only did I find it not to be as horribly violent and gory as I feared, I actually kept on thinking, oh, this is really well made. This is really good. Like, I can't recommend it enough. And there's something very hypnotic about it and somewhat White Lotus-y. You have a sort of captive group of people and someone's going to die. And it's, on the one hand, claustrophobic, very stylized.
First time, the moment you see the wooden doll turn around, did you gasp? I mean, it's such a beautiful set piece.
Absolutely gasp. And here I want to play tribute to Tom and the entire team on RuPaul's Drag Race season 17, because I think seeing the opening of that season finally made me think, I have to see this. I finally have to see it. And everything I've seen in Squid Game only makes me appreciate even more this sheer genius of the opening of season 17. I mean, there should just be awards for that alone. I mean, and it is so good and so funny. But I've seen lots of pictures, obviously, of where they keep all the contestants. But I was also taken by the behind the scenes sort of MC Escher type staircases with these Memphis type pastel colors. And I just found the whole thing completely sort of mesmerizing. And I don't really have anything intelligent to say about it. But the other thing I think that drove me to Squid Game finally, apart from Elliot and apart from RuPaul's Drag Race season 17, there was a viral video saying that it was based on a true story set in 1986, and that this actually happened in a bunker in no man's land in the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea. And they online, there's a video that's been viewed, I don't know, millions and millions of times, that would look like it could have been the original location. But that's completely fake. It's not true. It wasn't. Although there are a couple of real life parallels, and I don't know if you know them, but one is a concentration camp in Busan in South Korea called Brothers Home, which is where, in anticipation of I think it was the 88 Olympics, they rounded up all the homeless kids and orphans and put them in a kind of a camp called Brothers Home, where they had to work in factories, and there was horrendous abuse and beatings and killings. And apparently that's one of the inspirations. And the other inspiration was there was a strike at a car factory. And in 2009, the car maker just laid off 2,000 workers. And the creator, Hwang Dong-hyuk, said that he wanted to show that ordinary middle-class people, you can suddenly fall to the bottom of the economic ladder overnight. The sort of precariousness of, you can sort of fall through the cracks. We've watched every episode, and I guess we'll start on season 2, which has been less enthusiastically received than season 1, I would say.
Season 3 drops June 27th, so you need to barrel through it as fast as you can.
Yeah, it's really good, right?
Maybe in 2 or 3 years we'll get Tom to watch it.
When it's on Turner Classic Movies, I'll be all over it.
All right, let's take a quick break. Slaycation is a 6-part series. Boa, Jada, Shada Hudson, Kenny Muse, Kerry Colby, Lux Noir, and Lawrence Cheney on vacation together in a Canadian winter cabin. It's really lovely and fun. It's not like Squid Game at all. No drag queens are hurt in this, and you get to see these amazing queens out of drag, just being themselves, having a vacation, and hence Slaycation. And where can you watch it? Wow Presents Plus, of course.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
Maybe in season 2 of Slaycation, the 4 of us could go on vacation somewhere and be trapped in a cabin together.
That would end bloodily, right?
I could see James joining the drag queens as like our version of a rabid raccoon let loose in the house.
Like sort of an intruder, like a wild animal, a wildebeest.
Yes.
The abuse that I put up with here.
What have you got in the form of a question for us, Blake?
Well, I'm afraid James or Tom might know this, but I found this out on Facebook. Remember the Double Mint twins?
Yeah.
From the advertisements for Wrigley's Double Mint gum. I bet you didn't know that they had a more famous sibling.
I do.
Who is it?
Tom knows too.
Well, the answer will be revealed after the break here on the Wow Report on Radio Handy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Tom and Blake.
Yep. And I asked the Double Mint twins from the advertisement for Wrigley's Double Mint gum, I bet you didn't know they had a more famous older sibling. Who is it? Fenton, do you have a guess?
I'm going to guess Juicy Fruit.
Can I give some context? Because I think James and I both know it. But there were many Doublemint twins, but these two were in the 80s. It was the Seagal sisters and their famous sisters, Katie Seagal, the mother from Married with Children, and of course all the other Sons of Anarchy and everything else she's done. What a little Tom Campbell footnote is, when I worked at Embassy Television the summer of '84, and I was 21 years old, there was a sitcom called Double Trouble that Norman Lear executive produced, which starred the Seagal twins.
Yes.
But it didn't last very long. Justin Bateman was a baby in a show called It's Your Move, and he ended up, that failed, so they put him onto Silver Spoons. And George Clooney was with Elliot Gould in a sitcom called ER, a sitcom called ER that got canceled. Of course, George Clooney would become the carpenter on The Facts of Life.
But what was Katie doing at the time? That's my part two of the question. What was she most famous for before Married with Children?
I think she was one of Bette Midler's backup singers. She was a harlot.
Yes, she was a harlot at the time. She sang with her at the baths and everything. Yeah.
So when you ask me questions about books and I look at you blankly, know that there's a lot of knowledge up here. It's just useless knowledge. Okay, thank you.
I am always impressed by your encyclopedic knowledge of everything pop culture. It's amazing. Dazzle us now, though, with number 7.
Number 7.
I went home this weekend. I told you this for my Aunt Hazel's funeral, which was lovely, beautiful commitment to life. But I got to spend time with my nephew, who's just becoming, he's always been a great kid. He's just becoming, he's going on 11. He's just so much fun to be around. He's so smart. You know, when he came out here, he turned me on to like different, like the Funko Pop Museum. He just has his finger on the pulse. He's from New Hampshire. And he and my brother, who is like his father and his sibling, because they watched, like, they love Batman and Star Wars and everything together. They sat down to watch the finale of Beast Games.
Mr.
Do you know
Beast.
Do you know what Beast Games is? Like you?
Yeah, I've watched it. It's pretty good. I don't like him, but I do like the show.
This topic is only going to make me look incredibly out of touch. But Mr. Beast is one of those YouTube guys who became famous for doing stunts. One of his stunts, which got a zillion views, was him counting 1 to like 100,000, which took like 48 hours continuously. And he has these, when he became kind of internet famous, he's 26, so he's still very young. But when he sort of dropped out of college and just sort of studied the internet and videos, and he kept doing them. And so he's like one of the most, next to Cootie Pie or whatever, he's like the second most watched, most followed person on the internet. And he kind of does stunts. And when he became famous, he hired his friends. So it's a bunch of dudes running around. And I guess he did a version of the Beast Games online where he was trying to like make money for good causes by doing these really stunty kind of Squid Game like games, the reality show Squid Games. Well, Amazon bought the show Beast Games, and it supposedly has a budget, write this down, Fenton, of $100 million. They narrowed down from 1,000 contestants down to 1 over 10 episodes. And it's all of these, which I think was very Squid Games, which I only sampled, but it's all these, like, I'll give you $1 million, but everyone in your team has to go home penniless. You know, it's all of these incredible moral dilemmas. I think there's a stadium in Las Vegas where they shut, and surprise, it's captivating television. Because it's between these like devastating things and these stupid like agility tests or strength tests or something. But this one guy got to flip a coin where he either was going to like lose whatever he had got or double the $5 million prize to $10 million. You know, the odds were against him. He flipped that coin and he made a $10 million pot. So they were playing for $10 million, which starts to just boggle the mind, because they had backstories. You know, there's a guy who like son had some rare disease. He goes, I'm going to use this $5 million. Other than him, nobody. It's like, what are you going to do with the money? Well, I'm going to buy my parents a house. And then what are you going to do? And then what are you going to do?
You know, the funny thing is, I discovered Mr. Beast And I watched a whole season of his thing online, and I actually can't remember what it was about. I know that it involved narrowing down like 100 people to one winner. And it was in a giant sort of warehouse, and people were in glass cubes. And I was hooked. And the whole thing only lasted like 90 minutes, and it was multiple episodes. This was a while ago. This was before he signed the Amazon deal. It's just so adrenaline driven, and kind of like so much of what we do in the reality space is governed by the economics of the situation of like, well, budgets are falling and you got to do this and you got to do that. And this is like no limit, just like whatever you want, we're going to build it and do it. And it was quite refreshing. But the weird thing is I can't actually remember what.
I think it was the prototype for this show. It was. Here's some interesting facts, and we can move on. But it's like, first of all, they always say that like YouTube stars don't want to be on TV because of the limitations, because they're huge on YouTube. They do it themselves. They're self-made. Well, this guy has made a huge transition into the most streamed reality show on Amazon. And it got panned by the critics. But watching it next to my 10-and-a-half-year-old nephew who loves YouTube, he spends his time on YouTube if he can, it's a phenomenon. As producers, what we are familiar with is, now you know how hard it is and how much effort we put into protecting our casts of 10, 15 contestants. Imagine day one, 1,000 contestants. There's some lawsuits happening about people.
Oh, well, there is a bit of a cancel narrative around Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
So multiple ones, but nonetheless, you're right. It's a phenomena that's quite remarkable.
And thank you, nephew Brady, for making me.
But that's it. I got turned on to Squid Game by Elliot. I know, James, I ignored you, but that's my role in life. And
sorry, Boomer.
The children of the future. James, number 6.
Number 6.
I watched a Brutalist classic on Turner Classic Movies. Were those the words you wanted to hear?
I'm here for it, baby.
You got Brutalist for Fenton. You got TCM for me. Go.
Son of Frankenstein, 1939. Okay. One of those Universal horror movies. It stars Boris Karloff. In the last time he ever is the monster, he'd done Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, and this is Son of Frankenstein. Bela Lugosi is Igor, who this time is a crazed maniac and just out of control. And the always handsome Basil Rathbone is Wolf von Frankenstein, the son of Dr. Frankenstein, who returns back to the castle after his father's death to reclaim his legacy. And he discovers the laboratory with all the notes, and he discovers that the monster is still alive but comatose, and he goes about to bring the monster back to life. And then, of course, all sorts of chaos ensues. But the castle and the lab are these amazing concrete slabs of brutalist architecture. There's like these concrete eagle's heads that jut out over the table of the dining room. There's a staircase that's sort of like these slabs of concrete. The lab itself is this dome with these weird little angled windows, and inside it's very minimalist. It's not like the old Frankenstein with the lightning and all that stuff like that. It's this minimalist lab. The outdoors, as they're driving through the countryside, it looks like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The trees are all at these bizarre angles, casting these weird shadows. The clouds have these like radiant light pouring out of them. It's surrealist, it's brutalist, it's minimalist. It is insane. The set design on this, just to see, Basil Rathbone and Bela and Boris all work together. And interestingly enough, the storyline follows very closely Young Frankenstein. You can see that this is probably the movie that they got their blueprint from, the Gene Hackman, Mel Brooks classic, right down to the policeman with the wooden arm who's always lifting the arm up and putting darts in the arm, and all the funny bits that Harvey Korman does, I think. Yeah, and this policeman with the wooden arm steals the whole movie. It's absolutely hysterical. But I just wanted to point out that I'd never seen it before, and I was just glued to the beauty of it.
All right. Oh, number 5 is me.
Number 5.
I'm totally in an 80s space, like, in the same way that Squid Game supposed to have originated in the 80s, inspirationally anyway, watching a doc series on Netflix called The Billionaire, the Butler, and the Boyfriend. And this is about Lillian Bettencourt.
Yeah.
The wealthiest woman in the world when she died, I think, in 2017. And she was worth then over 30 billion, which, of course, in today's money doesn't seem to be very much. But she was the heiress to the L'Oreal Cosmetics empire. Mm-hmm. And it's a French-made documentary series. It's only 3 parts, but it's so beautifully shot. And just the graphics and everything is, and it's very French. It's it's very French.
Dude, I watched it when it came out, and the whole idea of the butler, which I know you're going to talk about in a minute. When you say it's very French, there seems to be a serious lack of moralizing. Whereas if it was an American thing, they would have just been screechy about what happened.
Right. So
they're very laissez-faire about it.
I haven't finished it yet, but who did she marry? She married some man who basically was gay. And so she was essentially locked up, fabulously wealthy, but incredibly lonely. And then one day, a kind of rude, iconoclastic photographer comes into her life to shoot her. He pulls up on his moped and he pisses in the bushes and he doesn't stick to etiquette.
He's very Gerard Depardieu, Alain Delon. He's very French, yes.
Francois-Marie Bagnaia. And he's like, yes, he's sort of not like a working class hero, but he's just like, fuck you all very much. And he takes her by surprise and she loves him. And they, even though he's gay too, actually, but it's just this inspirational relationship, which then leads to her giving him $1 million here, $1 million there, a painting here. I mean, gifts ultimately totaling, I think, something like $1 billion. And this does not go down well with her only child, her daughter, who the mom, who Lillian does not seem to really get on with. And Lillian is dreading the prospect of her daughter taking over the inheritance and the empire. Have I got it right, James? I mean, that's kind of where I've got up to. And there's a financial advisor in the mix. There are secret recordings of her and the advisor talking, which led to some kind of tax evasion plotting, which then somehow led to Nicolas Sarkozy, the former French president. It's got little White Lotus-y shades, I would say, because there's a fabulous female interviewee who is the woman who's an artist, and she introduced Lillian Bettencourt to this photographer, this celebrity photographer. And she walks in and looks around and says, I'm not feeling this light, for her interview. And then there's another point in it where she suddenly, we've been talking for a long time, and she just gets up and walks out. I mean, just fabulous characters and a really intriguing story that doesn't really conform to, algorithmic expectations, shall we say. It sort of twists and turns and it's all slightly opaque, which is just fabulous, I think. All right, let's take a break. Blake.
Yes, and I have a question for you guys. Who was the first to include elaborate sets in their Saturday Night Live musical performances? On Saturday Night Live, the musical guests used to just have a microphone in their band.
Yeah, and they'd stand in front of
the first to have a big set?
Okay, we'll have the answer right here on the Wow Report on Radio Andy, right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake.
And I asked, on Saturday Night Live, the musical guests used to just sing with the microphone. Now they have sometimes elaborate sets. Who was the first to do that?
I feel like it was Kanye.
You're right. It was Kanye.
Okay. I remember seeing that and thinking, well, this just flies in the face of 45 years of
I was gonna say I watched 27 hours of Saturday Night Live specials this past weekend, and I knew, and they told us that, and I couldn't remember, which shows you my retention's bad. But there's a lot of information. But everybody, once he added the lights and stuff, everybody since then has demanded to have some fantastic visual thing. So in a weird way,
Eilish, I can think of ASAP Rocky, Kendrick Lamar, all Miley.
All right. Well, we're counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow, and we've reached number 4.
Number 4.
Trump has been in office for just like a day over a month. Let's just think what's happened this week and just help me. We don't have to go off on political rants, but just like he accused Zelensky in the Ukraine of being a dictator who started the war with Russia, when in fact we know that Russia, without provocation, invaded the Ukraine.
He also, and I want to say this one, it just drives me bananas, is that after that Oval Office interview with Elon Musk, in which they both said, so Elon, what are you doing with Doge? Well, my Doge office is doing this. Well, then this week, Trump has said, no, he's not in charge of Doge. He's a consultant. He has nothing to do with it. After them saying over and over again, my Doge, what do you think about your Doge? Blah, 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 blah. Drives me crazy.
The USDA acting under the mandate of Doge to fire people accidentally fired officials working on bird flu and are now trying to rehire them.
They also accidentally fired people handling nuclear defenses, which they also had to go and rehire or try to rehire. But the one thing I wanted to mention, and this just came out, was he signed an executive order that said only the president of the United States can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
I've seen constitutional scholars say that right there is one of the scariest things that he's done, which I don't quite understand why, but people are very up in arms about that one.
I'm not ranking these in terms of importance. Also, House Republicans this week introduced a bill to raise your banking fees. You know, all this
and add new ones. Yes.
Yeah. For
I had $900 worth of banking fees in 2005 before they changed the law. It is predatory what the banks will do. If you are poor like me, and what happened was I overdrafted, and then I bought. It didn't tell me I was overdrafted, but I went and bought like 10 things, and I had $30, $30 on each one. They kept doubling and doubling and doubling until it was $900.
Sometimes people's Social Security checks get released late for some kind of glitch, and they could bounce all their checks, and they'd have to pay.
We've also seen that they've introduced that they're going to try, to offset the $1 trillion tax breaks. They're going to come for Social Security and Medicaid. They just will. You know what? They also Doge fired a bunch of FAA workers again, which we're going to probably talk about at number 1, because that was this week, a couple hundred more.
Yes.
Which does not bode well for anyone.
Data breaches, IRS has been taken over, shutting down energy products, and food and medicine that was part of U.S. aid and is rotting at borders. This is again not in order of importance, but presumably this, I think I've fact checked this best I can. Target, which abandoned DEI programs, has experienced an incredible drop in their stock. And there is this, and it might be temporary, who knows, but there's also going to be, on February 28th, there's an economic blackout. We're supposed to buy nothing on February 28th. I don't know if you agree with this or not. March 7th to 14th, Amazon boycott. March 21st to 28th, a Nestle's boycott. That'll be easy. April 7th to 14th, a Walmart boycott. And then there's a couple others. So anyway, I just had to list off those things. We're not ignoring that they inform everything we think and do. Like while I'm watching White Lotus, enjoying myself, these things are gnawing at the back of my head. So thanks for walking down memory lane.
I was wondering, I had an idle fantasy, if it would be possible at some point to file a class action lawsuit for trauma and emotional damage created by this whole administration, because I feel it. There are some days where I'm like, I can't cope. I can't go. I'm like, it's just overwhelming. It's like a heavy weight just eternally.
And the courts are all packed with Trump judges. Who's going to side with you?
Well, I live in
Nobody.
hope. I'm going to file a squillion-dollar lawsuit. And
with all of this, there is just nobody to stop him.
Hmm.
Nobody will. There's just it's just packed. Everybody, it's all packed for the Republicans.
Well, on that cheery note, let's go on to number 3.
Number 3.
I read in the Daily Mail a story that was very odd story that sort of upset me a little bit. This 14-year-old boy died by way of butterfly injections. There was an online challenge on Reddit in which you crush up butterflies, you add water, and you put it in a syringe and you inject it in yourself. I don't know what they thought was going to happen. If they thought he was going to sprout wings and fly away like Spider-Man or whatever, but no, apparently he had 7 days of excruciating pain, died a horrible, agonizing death. First of all, the moment he injected it, he began vomiting and he couldn't walk, was limping, and then it kept getting worse and worse. He was taken to the hospital when he finally admitted to his father what he had done. He went into septic shock and his body began shutting down. And then they were talking about other online challenges that people find, teenagers are doing. And one of them, this girl in Brazil, there was an ice bucket challenge in which they put rock salt in the ice bucket with them. And she put her feet in for 15 minutes and necrosis started. Her feet turned black. She came out and they had to amputate the feet. She almost had an embolism and died. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, do not take up these challenges, people. For the love of God, do not do something stupid like injecting butterflies into your veins.
The Daily Mail has a line in Horrible Deaths. I've made that mistake once or twice of like clicking on something and it just like leads you from one horrible death to the next.
Yes. But why would you ever think that injecting a butterfly would be good? Like what goes?
Yes, I mean, doesn't the article say what they were trying to achieve, or like
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's the Daily Mail.
Does this just support the theory of evolution?
Well, it is a Darwin Award type thing. Yeah. I mean, teenagers always have weird since the 70s when you had to, jump your bike over 10 cars. Kids always do stupid things, and there's always a price to be paid, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah, don't do it. That's the wrap up on that one.
Say no.
Death by butterfly, I guess.
Okay. Number 2. My third sort of 80s thing, Rivals. I think you might have talked about it here before. Internationally, it's on Disney Plus. Here it's on Hulu. The adaptation of Jilly Cooper's 1988 bonkbuster. Love a good bonkbuster. In the 80s, you had Judith Krantz, I'll Take Manhattan. You had Jackie Collins, Hollywood Wives. You had also Jilly Cooper, who wrote Lace. Do you remember Lace?
Oh, yeah. Which one of you bastards is my father?
Which one of you bitches is my mother? Actually, yeah. Yes.
No, because Lace Part 2 is which one of you bastards is my father.
Oh,
okay.
And
Jumping ahead.
So I kind of felt that the Bonkbuster had its moment in the 80s, and then the culture moved on. But this series has been a huge hit, and it's based on her 1988 book Rivals. It's called Rivals. And what I didn't realize, well, A, Jilly Cooper is still alive, but B, she wrote 10 of these novels in this milieu, and it's the Chronicles of Rutshire, Rutshire. And I think there's a clue, because in Rutshire, all people seem to do is rut. There's just endless amounts of kinky sex. And this steamy soap opera, I mean, I actually kind of hate it. And even though I've like forced myself to watch like 3 episodes, every time I'm like, I'm not watching another episode. I'm just disgusted and repulsed.
Is this from the 80s or it's modern? Is it new?
It's set in the 80s, but it's actually brand new. It has just been made and just aired I think the end of last year. It's a throwback. It's actually at this point, it's a period piece. Yeah. And Rivals begins, I believe, on Concord, and the dastardly, handsome cad is bonking someone in the ladies' room on Concord, and as they break the sound barrier and champagne corks pop, he comes. I mean, it's just tawdry rubbish. Just like, I'm appalled, outraged. And
I can't wait to watch it. It sounds terrible.
I know. Yeah, so that's Rivals on Hulu. I don't recommend it, but if you like tawdry trash and kinky sex at any, without any, and the character's just so badly drawn and so sort of White Lotus, this is not. You know, it's like,
does it have any stars in it that we would recognize?
I'm sure you do. Let me just tell you, David Tennant.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Aidan Turner.
Oh, sure.
Alex Hassel. He's the studly guy, but he's just so pleased with himself all the time, so smug and sneery. It's just, I break out in hives every time I watch it. I don't know what, it makes me go, things that make you go yuck, but you can't stop watching. All right. Brand new episode of RuPaul's Drag Race season 17 tonight on MTV in the States, or of course, Wow Presents Plus everywhere else. It's the big rusical number this week, The Wicked Wiz of Oz. And of course, Untucked is making history, so don't miss out, right?
It's a good week. Everyone should watch.
It is a good week in an amazing season, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, the number one thing this week that made us go wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with Tom and Blake and James. We've been counting down the top 10 things of the week that make us go wow, and we've reached number one.
Number one.
I'm Tom Campbell. I'm your referee today. It is James versus Fenton in the airplane crash story. I'm going to let James go first. Go, James.
Well, I'm just going to lob the first insult here and say that what you're about to hear from Fenton is nothing but a bunch of Republican talking points, whereas I have the truth of the matter, because I want to just say that there is something weird going on, something not quite right in the state of Denmark. I can't help but feel that since Trump has taken over, there have been more plane crashes. And some people are saying, no, it's just that there's more reporting of plane crashes. It's not that there's more plane crashes. I don't believe it for a second. I do just want to read this very quickly. In the past 2 days, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy has been blaming Pete Buttigieg, Joe Biden, the Democrats, and anyone else he can think of for the fact that under his watch, planes are crashing on a near daily basis. Just this week, we've had 2, one in Arizona, maybe fewer joyrides on the Daytona 500 and a little more attention paid to Transportation Secretary Duffy, and maybe Trump firing FAA employees isn't such a great idea. Fenton, what say you?
Fenton.
I can say nothing. James is right.
Oh,
I bow before you. I bow
You
before
were the
you.
one who you said that we need to pay attention to the real problems and not just like.
Well, I just felt like that he hadn't got round to firing all the FAA people when the first crashes began. So, but
something creepy going on. I don't know if it's biblical, but like the upside down plane, like it's super creepy. Is it possible that in these few days things have fallen apart so much that we can blame Trump? Or is it a coincidence?
Doesn't it feel like Buttigieg single-handedly was keeping the world safe, and then now he's not there, and we have this horrible reality star, Sean Duffy, who is not like all of his other picks, he's not qualified. And when you start deregulating and firing FAA people, bad stuff is going to happen. And I think we just need to watch.
Yeah. You know, I'm the third of 3 children, so I'm always looking for compromise. But I think both can be true, because I feel like there has been a lot of airplane unsafety. It's disgusting. It's heartbreaking. And I also don't, and I also think that the FAA is headed for disaster. You know, even if it's not responsible for those initial flights, there's only going to get worse. And there's so many horrible things happening. I only list them because I hope someday, before too long, before it's too late, that the regular people that voted for him, I don't know, that there is an uprising where people understand that their Social Security is going. Like, what do you have to take away from people until they start to understand and revolt.
I guess we're about to find out.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, and just very quickly though, I do think that even like if Fenton is right to say that it didn't happen, you know, that those first 2 days it couldn't have been Trump's fault, you know, the first week or whatever. But I do think that it's just worth keeping an eye on to see as things fall apart, you know.
This fight was much more juicy last night on the text chain.
No, you
Well, I'm not. Yeah. But we are out of time, and so I can tease everybody with the prospect of more fights, more mudslinging, more victories to come next week. Same time, same place. In the meantime, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow.